On this episode of China Uncensored, when you hear the North Korea of Africa, I know what you're thinking. What a great place to invest. Hi, welcome back to China Uncensored. I'm your host, Chris Chappell. The Chinese Communist Party has decided to try its hand at a little good old-fashioned colonialism in Africa. Besides burying many African countries in debt traps, the Chinese regime also plans to build up its military there. Sadly, a lot of African countries are run by dictators, and it's hard for dictators to get the support they want from the West. That's where the Chinese Communist Party steps in. They don't make unreasonable demands like to improve human rights and democracy. They give the dictators cash, plus sell them security technology so they can keep an iron grip on power. A perfect example of this is Eritrea. You know, Eritrea. Okay, a lot of people have never heard of Eritrea, but the Chinese Communist Party sure has. It's a small country on the Horn of Africa, right next to Djibouti, where China put its first overseas military base. The modern country of Eritrea only gained independence in 1991, after a long war to separate from Ethiopia. And what did the newly liberated people get? A brutal dictatorship. To learn more about China's role in Eritrea, I sat down with Meron Estafanos, an Eritrean activist and journalist now living in Sweden. We met on the sidelines of the Oslo Freedom Forum in New York. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So, for our audience who maybe doesn't know much about Eritrea, how would you describe it?
Eritrea is a 27-year-old country that never had election. There's only one party, one state media. There is no free press. It's referred as the North Korea of Africa.
The North Korea of Africa.
Yeah, and it literally is.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's how I can describe it in short.
Do you have to call your leader dear leader, like in North Korea?
We don't do that, but the whole country it's a militarized state where about 27% of the population is in the military. So everybody from the age of 15, 16 until you are 50, you belong to the government. So in the name of the national service, that's supposed to be 18 months, originally planned for 18 months, it became indefinite. So
indefinite military conscription.
Exactly.
Now, as I understand it, a lot of people like to leave the country before they have to serve.
Yeah, sadly, like we see, 15 years ago, like the people that were fleeing from Eritrea was 30 plus, educated people, whatever, and then 10 years later, it became like 20 plus. And then now, the last 7 years, all I see is like children as young as 7, unaccompanied, fleeing. And these kids are very realistic because they know the father is in the military, and your 6 older siblings are in the military, so you know your fate is like in few years, that will be you. So already at age 7, children understand this and they just flee, which is really shocking to me.
So military service is not a great thing in Eritrea.
I mean, like, imagine military service. When we say military service, is like, first of all, at the age of 16, you're not mature enough. So you don't even have any knowledge. That's the time where you gain a lot of knowledge from your family, from your society. So they are separating you from wherever you grew up, and then they will take you in the middle of nowhere, train you, and then they will assign you in any kind of work. So it could be, it's slavery. That's how I can describe it. Because imagine being a woman, you are 16, and then you're doing your the last year of your high school, you have to do it like at the military camp, which is in the middle of nowhere. And then from there, so you're being brainwashed, and also you have no culture, you have no knowledge like as the rest of the people or the older generation. So it becomes, the only thing you know is like you become like a yes man or a yes woman, like everything is decided when you have to go up, when you have to sleep, when you have what you have to do. Even like when you have to go to the toilet, you cannot go as you please. It's like there is a certain time that you can use the toilet.
What if you have to really go?
Doesn't matter, then you have to let it go on yourself.
So it's an incredibly repressive government.
Very, very, yeah.
So maybe there's a lot of people in the world who don't know much about Eritrea, but the Chinese Communist Party has been interested in Eritrea for a long time. Why is that?
I mean, the relationship with Eritrea and China goes back actually back in the late 50s. That's when Eritreans that were like activists were being sent off to China, being trained in China. Even our president in 1961 actually was in China, was taught by Chinese. So during the struggle for independence, it was like basically that what they were running was Mao style kind of.
Kind of Maoist, Marxist.
Yeah,
guerrilla.
Exactly. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So it goes long time, but now with China's influence in Africa, I mean, like China is everywhere at this time, especially in Africa. So with Eritrea, the influence is not that much, but it's starting. You know, they bought this mining company, and the same mining company is accused of forced labor because instead of hiring independent people, so they are using the conscripts to work in these companies as part of their national service.
Oh, so they're not even taking Chinese workers to work, they're just using...
Yeah, local people, but conscripts. So this is
like
they're not
slave
even
labor?
It is slave labor. So there is a case actually against Nefson, which is now owned by Chinese, but it was a Canadian company. So there's an ongoing trial in Canada about this case. Like some of the conscripts that managed to flee actually sued the company, and it's an ongoing case right now.
Well, Eritrea is also located in a pretty strategic location.
Yeah.
Is there benefit for Chinese military projection, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, like you see slowly, it's like the relationship with China and Eritrea is growing. I can give you an example. Like just a few months ago, I was contacted by the Eritrean journalist who was in China. I was like, "What are you doing in China?" He said, "No, we are sent to China, like to do like journalism course." I was like, "Really?" You know?
Journalism in China. Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, so he wanted to defect. And he was like, I don't want to go back to Eritrea. I want to stay here. And it was impossible, and we couldn't find an NGO that could help him. And the Chinese government actually collaborated with the Eritrean government and held his passport. So it was like one of the toughest cases that are being involved. And at last, so in order to get his passport, what we did was we sent him some money, and then he asked, "I need my passport in order to take out like the money that I received through Western Union." And then, so they contacted, they were following him around everywhere. They knew this guy wanted to defect. So they informed the Eritrean government that this guy is trying to change his flight. And so the Eritrean government told them, make sure that he boards the same flight as we booked him.
Wow.
And then we said, okay, you go ahead, because he had a transit in Egypt. So we got him a new ticket from Egypt to Ethiopia instead of to Eritrea, because they refused to let him buy a new ticket. Like that's how far the relationship is getting stronger right now.
Wow. Yeah. And you were telling me before about an interesting encounter you had on a plane ride. Why don't you tell us a bit about that?
I just got back from Africa and from Mali. So I met I was sitting next to two Chinese men. And we start talking, very friendly. Normally, like when you meet Chinese, very reserved people, it takes some time to talk. But this guy just started talking to me, and so he told me he was he was a professor at this business university in China. And then the second person that was sitting next to him was from the Chinese government. So I asked, "What were you doing in Mali?" They said, "No, we just came here to see what kind of investment that we can do." They had a meeting with the Malian government, which is Mali is right now a very terrible, what can I say? I mean, the situation in Mali is not that good right now to invest, to be honest. But still, they are interested. So they were showing me how they were interviewed by the Malian TV and things like that. And then we spent like 9 hours. the professor was trying to convince me how a one-party system is great. And I was like, come on.
Just like in Eritrea.
Yeah, and I said, I'm from Eritrea, so don't try to tell me what one-party system means.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, no, it's good for business. And so we kept arguing about this. And he said, why don't you come to China? I said, I wouldn't. I said, if I come to China, I know I will be arrested by your government because I'm a very outspoken person.
Mm-hmm.
I'll see something I don't like. I will speak up. I have no guarantee. You get the point?
And would they send you back to Eritrea?
I don't know, whatever they can do. But I just told him that I wouldn't feel comfortable visiting China. Plus that I have many Chinese activists. So he wanted to know. We kept discussing about it, a lot of argument about the one-party system, business and things. And so, but then, you would see when the guy from the government was asleep, the professor kind of agreed with me,
He maybe had a different point of view when the government
yeah, like he didn't
watching.
say anything bad, but like he kind of agreed with my argument. But then, when I was really surprised, the guy from the government. At first, I didn't know he was from the government. Like his English was like, fluent, very fluent, like sounded like American. And I was saying, wow, I mean, no accent, nothing, and he's never been in US.
That's impressive.
Yeah, then I found out that he was from the government side. So what they did is they visited Mali trying to see what kind of investment they can do. And then they will go back and offer to the people, but which offering the people would mean, they're just making 20%, the rest the government would make it. So that kind of...
so the investment is not really helping the locals.
Yeah, it never does. And the thing is also, to me, one thing I understood about like all African countries, if they hire like a professor in any university, it's always Indian. And if it's business, it's always Chinese. So my understanding is, after this, I came to this understanding after years actually, that it's because those African dictators choose the Chinese and the Indians because they will never speak about human rights. They will never talk about, like the Indian just want to make his money. He doesn't involve, even though he's a professor, he's teaching people, but he doesn't want to teach at the same time, compare to the situation. They are always very quiet. They don't involve themselves, so they try to stay neutral, which is really sad. And then you have the Chinese who will never discuss, because they will claim, even when you meet them, like I was in Ethiopia last week as well, and I met another investor, a Chinese one, who's actually doing a good job, like he's buying all recycled bags and then selling it off.
Okay.
But even him, as an independent person, he was trying to tell me like how great the one-party system is.
Yes.
So that's the kind of mentality that you see. So that means you're not a threat to the African dictator. So that's why they prefer Indian teachers and Chinese investors.
Well, I'm curious because a lot of aid that comes from the U.S. or other Western nations often comes with demands for improved human rights. When China is offering that kind of aid or financial investment, are human rights ever on the table?
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, like, it's always funny, like whenever I'm speaking at the UN Human Rights Council, it's always China that will oppose whatever it is that we say. Even though you're bringing proof, you're bringing victims of the Eritrean government, but it's always China will oppose any kind of,
So they're really helping
or
support.
they will abstain from voting.
Yeah, so they're really helping support the
Of
Eritrean
course they do.
dictatorship.
Yeah, it's always, you always know. It's like if Eritrea is raised up at the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva, it's always North Korea and China that will oppose the rest of the countries. It's always like that.
And so what's the feeling in Eritrea about the Chinese workers and investors who are in the country?
As far for the people, I mean, nothing really. Like the people don't really understand.
Okay.
So the ones that are educated do understand like what it means. The thing like with the Chinese is, like any country will be happy to have investors, but with China is like they're not even giving you work because they are bringing their own people. So they are taking jobs from the local people. They are empowering the dictatorships by, when you invest in a country like the mining companies right now, for example, that's like a pump to the Eritrean government. It's prolonging our suffering. So they are being an accomplice of many crimes, by when you are investing and you are providing money to the dictatorship. So you are prolonging our suffering. That's the way I look at it.
Mm-hmm. And do you have any thoughts at all about how China's One Belt, One Road initiative is affecting Africa as a whole?
It is, and the sad part is even the material that they are selling it in Africa is not even like a material that you can use in months. We have many made in China products here in US, in Europe. I mean, those things at least will last you a year. But in Africa, they will give you like the worst materials that you can have. They are taking jobs from you, but at the same time, they are ripping you off. So that's what I see in every African continent right now, wherever you go. Like in Eritrea, they don't even want to pay taxes. So what they do is they want to get married to an Eritrean woman. Because if you marry an Eritrean, if you have a child like from an Eritrean, then you will be an Eritrean citizen. So they always try to become Eritrean citizens. So they would offer some women if you have a child from me, I'll buy you a big house.
Wow.
Kind of.
And well, it also makes sense because inside of China, there's a shortage of women because of years of sex-selective abortion from the one-child policy. So it seems like they're solving this problem abroad.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Also, as I understand it, the Chinese Communist Party supported the Eritrean Liberation Front and the Eritrean People's Liberation Front, the groups that were very active in the independence movement. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, that's in the early, as I said, with our president and many of the top cadres, as we call them, were
you
trained.
Use the term cadres. Okay.
They were trained in China. So when you look at our president, so he reminds me more of Mao. When the people in China was starving, Mao was sending food to other country, like in Yugoslavia or Czechoslovakia and things, And our president was doing the same thing.
Really?
Just few years, 2 years, 3 years ago, there was a starvation going on in the whole Horn of Africa, and he refused to admit that there was hunger in Eritrea, so he denied it, but he wouldn't allow an independent entity to come into the country and see for themselves. So we activists, any Eritrean knew that there was starvation in the country. So instead, what he did was sent lots of tons of food to Somalia, just to prove that there is no hunger in Eritrea.
Wow.
Even though the people were starving.
Jeez. And so what would you like to see the rest of the world do in Eritrea or Africa in general?
I mean, not the rest of the world, but I hope Africans will finally wake up and get rid of the dictatorships, because we are the reason where we are. All our problems, I don't blame it on our president, but we did make him the person that he is today because we allowed so many abuses to continue. So at last, it became that every family has lost someone or has a family member that's in prison. So the same thing in all African countries. But now it seems like finally Africans are rising up. So we're seeing more and more people are protesting all over Africa. And I hope that the next generation will lead into Africa into another direction, into a more democratic Africa. That's what I dream, and I think that's what Africans have to do. The same thing goes for China as well. That's my hope, and more and more people will speak about them.
Well, that's a very encouraging and optimistic way to end the interview, I think.
Right.
So thank you very much for joining us. It was a pleasure to have you on.
My pleasure to be here as well. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And if our audience would like to learn more about Eritrea, what would you recommend?
Start with Googling Eritrea, and there is the Commission of the UN Security Council. There was a Commission of Inquiry. There is a report, 2 reports, and in their second report, so it was Eritrea is committing crimes against humanity. So you can read the stories. what kind of crimes goes on in Eritrea, and I'm quite sure a lot of people will see, if you happen to come from a dictatorship country, then you will see your own country. Like whenever my friends read the report, they always say, I feel like who copied us, like did we copy each other kind of thing. So they're all similar in many things. I suggest that anybody interested to read the Commission of Inquiry report. There are many other books. Just Google Eritrea and you will see a lot of things.
Well, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Well, sorry to say, that's the end of another China Uncensored. But this isn't goodbye. Hit that subscribe button and turn the notification bell on so you know when we have more episodes. And more episodes we will have. A new one comes out every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and sometimes Saturday.